word design can be a little funny at times. It could have different interpretations depending on the scenario. When you hear the phrase, "That's a great design," would you know exactly what your interlocutor meant by that? It could mean aesthetics, functions, or even both. To give a much deeper meaning to the word design, let's put it this way. Design is about giving meaning to something. It is all about creating an everlasting experience. Design is something more than aesthetics, and most certainly it has many notches above the planning function. That is exactly why the concept of design transcends a single discipline. It can be applied to web, mobile, software, fashion, industrial, interior, and everything else. In the world where anything could be built, it is a matter of understanding whether it really should be built. That is design. Design is something that elevates the lives and lifestyle of people. Design changes what is into what ought to be. Design is the way to build a better and beautiful world. However, what we need to keep in mind is the fact that everything is designed, but few things are designed well. Design is so simple, and that's what makes it so complicated.
So in my opinion, what I call an art is my creative skill or my imagination or my emotions. So how I connect all my emotions or my imagination into my product. Whatever I see, a sunset or a sunrise or a view of a beach, that how I convert all of these into my product is something which I call art. So whereas a design is something which is the outcome of my art. So let's say if it's the drawing of my entire creativeness. So if I'm actually talking about it, it can be a clear cut or a hazy thin line between art and design. So you can't actually define both art and design in two different ways. So I would actually say it's something which overlaps all the time. How I started tie-dye. So how I started tie-dye is actually a funny story. So we started hiking about a year ago. So we started hiking. We went to Alla. So when we went to Alla, when we were coming down, it was pouring. So there was a scarf which I had, so I was covering myself from it. So the entire dye which had on the red color stuff was absorbed to my skinny. So once I got home, because it was one of my favorite skinnies, I didn't want to let go of it. So what I thought is, let me do something to it. Whether I could put some dye into it, whether I could either cut that part off. So the cutting part was out of the scene. So then what I thought is I'll do the dye. So without thinking further, what I did was I tied my entire t-shirt and I put it into a green color dye because the entire t-shirt was a yellow. So I put it into the green color dye, and then after about 6 to 8 hours, I took the t-shirt out, and then the entire red color patches were gone. So after that, what I was thinking is, this is something that I can actually use because it's something called upcycling. So whatever the clothes that you have, so whatever you don't want to throw away, you can use them in, let's say if you have any marks or any patches or any stains in your t-shirts. So what you can do is you can upcycle the entire t-shirt. So then you add value to it. That's what you call upcycling. So that's how I actually got into the trade of tie-dye. So how I came up with my brand name is actually tie-dye is something called it's tying and it's dye. So that's how I came up with Dear Siam. So because tie-dye is involved with water and it's with watercolors. So that's how I combined the entire name and started off with Dear Siam. There are about 5 methods that I use on tie-dye, which is quite famous by all the clients that I send it out to. So I use the first method is something called the swirl. So the swirl is where you can mix at least 1 color or about 2 colors, or you can at least mix to at least about 6 colors. So they swirl, and then we do the method called the bullseye. So that's where you tie about few rubber bands with taking 1 point of the entire t-shirt. And there's another method called the rising sun. So that's actually where I started off with tie-dye. So that's the first design I did for my skinny. So the other method is the scramble method. So where you can scramble the entire t-shirt and you can mix with about 1 or 2 colors. And the last and the most famous one is the spiral tie-dye. So where you get all the stripes, you can do it horizontal or vertical as well. So you can use many colors as you want, because let's say if you're doing a sari, so the entire 6 yards you can do it vertically or horizontally, so you can use at least about 6 to 8 colors or 1 to 2 colors. It depends on what you want. So spiral is something where you can use a lot of colors in order to brighten up the entire sari. The history of tie-dye. So when we say the history of tie-dye, the first thing which comes to our head is the American hippies. So it's actually not the brainchild of the American hippies which started tie-dye. So it actually formed in India and in Japan, and then on it turned into Africa. So the main form of the Indians using the tie-dye method is called the bandhani. So they used all the traditional methods where in order for them to use the tie-dye, they use the formation of rock, they use the formation of shiboni, and they use the formation of the spiral. So that's how the entire tie-dye started off in India. So tie-dye is, it's done entirely by your hand. So it's a 100% handmade item. So that's why it adds a lot of value into the product. So even if you compare with batik and tie-dye, both the arts are done handmade. So there are some batiks that if you see that which is done by machines as well. But even the process of batik, it takes the entire sketching and the entire waxing and the entire boiling. So just like that, the entire tie-dye process is also, so if you talk about it, tie-dye is a very unique design. So it's not specific, it's very free. So let's say if someone tells you, I would like to create a image of a beach. So that's something that we could actually interpret from the entire tie-dye process. So you can create the entire sand version of it, you can create the sky version of it, you can put a sun in the middle of it. So it's a very tedious process, but once you connect everything together, so that's the beauty of the entire tie-dye. So it's about an idea how you convert that into the product. So anyone could ask about the image of a sunrise, a sunset, or if you're actually talking about the beach scenes, you can do anything with tie-dye. So, and the beauty of it is, let's say once I design a t-shirt for someone, and if let's say someone else wants the entire same design again, so that's a little bit of a hard thing to do because you cannot replicate the same design over and over again for another person. So I would call that the beauty of the entire product because it's very unique. So no one else will be wearing the same design that you have. So it's very unique. So you have something which is 100% unique to you. To start off with the tie-dye, you can use an entire 100% cotton material or 100% silk. So the main reasons for you to use 100% cotton or 100% silk is if by any chance there is a mix in the fabric, the dye won't absorb. So the dyes that I use are the reactive dyes and the wet dye. So the reactive dye is done in a different process and the wet dye is done on a different process. So if you are using the reactive dye, you have to mix it with the salt. So if by any chance you are using the wet dye, you have to mix it with hydro. So once you're doing the dye, let's say we are starting off with the reactive dye. So once you take the reactive dye, you have to mix it with the salt and then the water. So if you want to add color, if you want to add more brightness into your products, you're supposed to add VIP. So that's something which makes the entire garment looks quite brighter than the normal usual color. So how you start it off with is you take the t-shirt, you're supposed to damp it with water. So you can either do it with water or you can do it on a dry surface as well. But you can, the thing is once you do it on a dry surface, the entire color, the uniqueness or the brightness of the entire product gets a little dull. So once you add water into it, you can make it bright and vibrant. So if I talk about the entire process, so you damp the t-shirt because that's the way I prefer it, and you damp the t-shirt and then you squeeze all the excess water and then you take out the t-shirt and you lay it on a surface. And let's say you want to do a swirl. So the easiest way, I know you can do it by your hands, but a way that I started using is with a fork. Because once you keep the fork and then you start swirling it, this entire design stays like perfectly. So that's one of the main reasons I started using that. So once you start this swirl, you swirl the entire product and then you put rubber bands into it. So the main reason for us to use rubber band other than let's say using any other items is because once you use the rubber bands, there are some portions that the dye doesn't get absorbed to. So that's the beauty of it. So let's say if not the entire t-shirt would be red or green. So the portions that we are tying the rubber band would be ended up in white. So that's how the entire design shows. So once you tie the entire t-shirt, let's say, with your rubber bands, you keep it on a cooling tray. So the main reason for you to keep it on a cooling tray is because the excess dye, you don't want it to absorb into the t-shirt, the back of the t-shirt. So if you're putting the, keeping it on a cooling tray, you can use the entire dye and use it without any problem. So once you do the entire dye on the cooling tray, you can take a squeeze bottle and then you can do your design. So if you are doing a two-way color, you can keep wedges and then do two-way colors. But if you want to use one color, it's just a matter of putting all the colors into the t-shirt. So once you take the t-shirt out, you can take it from that cooling tray and you can keep it in another where it doesn't have any excess amount of dye. So you have to cover the entire t-shirt for at least about 6 to 8 hours. And then once you're done with 6 to 8 hours, you can start rinsing it. So once you're rinsing it, you're not supposed to remove the rubber bands straight away. So you're supposed to keep the bands in a way that you tied it, and then you can rinse it first of all. So once you see all the excess amount of dye is being rinsed out, you can start removing the entire rubber band. So what I actually prefer is cutting off the rubber bands, because if not, the dye which is already in the rubber bands will start absorbing in the white areas. So you can cut it off and then remove the rubber bands from there, and then you can use the washing machine, because you're supposed to put it to the highest heat and then wash your t-shirt. So once you're done with that process, you're supposed to dry the t-shirt. You can keep it in the sun or you can keep it inside. So once you keep it in the sun, you can take it in and then you can iron the t-shirt. So the main reason for you to iron it is because then the color won't absorb into anything, and also it looks bright. So the first few times you're using your t-shirt or washing it, like the first 2 times I would say, you shouldn't wash it with any other clothes. So the main reason is if there's any amount of excess dye, it could absorb to any of your other clothes. So it's always best to wash your t-shirt alone without any other t-shirts in the dryer. So the products that I'm focused on at the moment, so as of now I'm doing t-shirts, I'm doing skinnies, I'm doing shorts, I have done bed sheets and matching pillowcases into it, I've done sarongs, and also the main thing that I actually practice in this Siam is upcycling. So that's something I actually would like to do in a larger scale, is because you actually use your old clothes again, so you don't have to throw it away. So you take all your old clothes, if there's any stains, anything which is on your t-shirts that you cannot get rid of, you can bring it to us. So what we do is we absorb the entire color where all the stains are, then we give another new look to it. So giving another look to an old product is called upcycling. Also, we are doing saris as well. So any saris that, let's say if you have any weddings in mind, or if you're from a bridal party, all the bridesmaids, we can do all the saris. So saris also we can categorize in 2 ways. You can do the entire sari in tie-dye, or you can do it in a 2-tone way. So what I mean by 2-tone way is you can use 3 yards of your saris in the tie-dye which falls to your hand, and the other 3 yards you can use it for your pleats, so it looks like a 2-tone sari. And also for the bridesmaid, we can even do the jackets in tie-dye and with a plain sari for the bridesmaids. So saris is something that we would like to do, and we would like to take it further from there, because there's a huge market to it and we would like to cater to that entire market from this Siam. Why you should have a tie-dye t-shirt in your closet. So it's fun, and it's something unique, and it's very artistic. So you can wear it anytime, any day, for any occasion, and that's why you should have a tie-dye t-shirt in your closet.